This episode is brought to you by Trailer Park Yard Games, where over 28 games are delivered directly to your party. We park the trailer, you party.
We've been living diversity for over 30 years. It's a way of life for us. And so let's just start there. We speak 36 languages or more now, probably. Last time we counted in our company, we embrace diversity, all kinds. I can list them out, but that's enough said.
Jaisy. You have agents and Asians, and I'm one of the Asians.
Well, let me say this. We have two ladies here. We have a couple of gentlemen here, too. So that's the first part. Family is extremely important.
Let's have a chat, talk this and that with PB and Jaisy.
Hello and welcome to the PB and Jaisy podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have Bill and Sarah, who are always here. Been trying to get rid of these guys, but they just keep coming back.
We're here.
And we are also joined with Jim Fite. A little story about the first time that I ever talked to Jim. I just interviewed with Century 21 to see if it was the right fit. And I was starting a new career and I was like, I don't know, should I do real estate? I'm like, it's the day after my interview. All of a sudden I get a call and it's from a number I don't know and I answer. And
that was your first mistake.
Yeah, that was my first answer. And they asked me if I wanted to extend my car warranty and it was weird, but no. Then the next call was from Jim. And I remember thinking like, Jim Fite? And he was just like, yeah, it's president and CEO of Century 21 Judge Fite Company. I heard great things about you. And I'm like, but wait, you're the president and you're calling me? Yeah. And I thought like, man, I'm so special. Like,
you are.
He called me out of all of the other people. But then when I actually joined, I realized that he called everybody.
No, I don't.
Because that's just the way that he leads. And then on my birthday, he called me. And I think that speaks a lot when you work for different companies and things like that. Not all presidents or CEOs or anybody will not call for those things. So that is just a short introduction to the small part of the type of person that Jim Fite is. So Jim, thank you so much for being here with us.
Hi, Jaisy.
How are you?
Hi, Sarah. Hi, Bill. Hi.
And something we didn't address last episode, y'all might notice we're in a new location.
Oh, yes.
We sure are.
And this also speaks to the company that we work for. Our office flooded, and in less than a week, we had a temporary location reset up.
In fact, it hasn't even been a week.
We did some pivoting.
What's crazy is this is the original office that Century 21.
The first time I met Bill Studham was
It's full circle.
Yeah, full circle.
Except we've grown by like 3 times then. Yes. And so this is temporary digs. But last Sunday night, we had an issue and we've got it resolved and we're up and running today. I think it's wonderful. You know, Jim, I don't know that everybody knows anything about you. Other than
that we can talk about.
That we can talk about, yeah. But one of the things that I think is kind of interesting is you lead one of the most largest and most successful Century 21 companies in the world, and the largest and most successful Century 21 company in the state of Texas by far. You lead people. But one of the things that I've heard you say many, many times is there's a difference between survival and succeeding. Survival and success, and that we're not here just to survive. You know, as the market changes and things turn around and issues happen, talk a little bit about that. What's the difference between survival and success to you?
Well, the foundation of that is going back 4 recessions ago. We've been in, my sister Jan and I have led this company through 4 of them. And if you throw COVID into that would be 5. Thank goodness that was short. Yeah, knock on wood. But, you know, I realized in a board meeting at a Realtor board of directors meeting at the back then Dallas Association of Realtors, at the recession, I was president of that association, and everybody was whining around the table about the market and what was going on in the world of real estate, and you know, doom and gloom and all this stuff. And one person just, I will say, really had a meltdown. And I finally had enough. And I said to the group, and I've said it ever since, Bill, we are not here to survive. We are here to succeed. We could get spiritual about that, but I'll just leave it at that.
So we can have some church if you
Yes.
want. Come on, Jim. Take us home.
I mean, I believe that we're put here for a reason on this earth, and that's to make this earth better and the people in it. And success is, as Earl Nightingale says, progressive realization of a worthy goal. In a recession time, if you set your goal to survive and you don't make it, it's not a good day.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
done. You're out of business. And that's really, what stuck with me that day and ever since then. We're not here to survive because, you set goals. Sometimes you don't make them.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you're a failure.
Right.
But if you set your goal to survive and you don't make it, you're out of business.
Right.
We're here to succeed. And if you don't quite make that goal, you're here. You're still doing business. You're still giving back, and you're still contributing to this earth.
So I noticed that your name is Jim Fite and our company's name is Judge Fite. Who is Judge?
That would be my father.
Your daddy.
Yeah, he founded the company in 1937.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so so you came along a little later than that.
1938.
Is
That wasn't funny.
Was
Okay.
real estate always a part of your world? Was it something you had thought about doing, or how did that transition? for
Yeah,
you?
so at 16, my mother was an agent in the company, and Dad ran the company day to day, and we had one office and 8 people. And so at 16, my mother was one end of the dining table, and my dad was at the other end of the dining table, which happened every night. And they were talking real estate and what all was going on in the office or the company or a transaction or whatever. And finally, can I make this one? Slammed my hand down on the table and I said, I am never going to be a realtor.
Famous last word.
And I stood up and walked out of dinner. 2 years later, I became a realtor at 18 and got my real estate license, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Someone else's daughter, I think, said that, right?
Yeah.
I heard that very same word from my daughter, who's very successful in real estate.
I think you fight those things sometimes, though. It's like you either emulate your parents or you do the exact opposite.
Oh, sure.
And so
Yeah, it's a comment. When we had Whitney Barth on, her dad was a pastor, and that was one of the first things she said when she was a kid was like, I'm never going to be a pastor. And it's like, well,
God has a really
Look
good
at you
sense of
now.
humor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so we actually had your beautiful wife, Petey, on
Mhm.
last week. Wink, wink. And I want to know, how did you land her? She is
She's a
no
pretty
offense to
cool
you,
chick.
but she
I
is,
married way up, right?
You outkicked your coverage.
she's pretty much
Yeah.
a superhero, basically, with Petey Parker as her
Yeah.
name.
And she talked about climbing buildings.
Mhm.
So how do you feel about that kind of stuff that she does, the daredevil side of her?
So, yeah, we've jumped out airplanes, climbed buildings.
So y'all do this together.
And y'all are going to be running with the Bulls soon.
That's what I hear.
Bill-
Not, that's where I finally said no. And it's not that I don't want her to run with the Bulls. It's
You don't want her to do it in heels.
Well, if she doesn't outrun the bull and she doesn't die, I don't want to take care of her the rest of her life in a hospital bed. That's
This is about not surviving.
So if she's
but-
gonna get
succeeding.
if she's gonna get run over by a bull, go
all the
that
way.
way. I go all the way.
whatever we're going to do. If we're going to jump out of an airplane and the parachute doesn't open, hey, it's over.
If it's gonna be over, let it be over.
let it be over. But the bull thing, that's just not. That's where I said no. We're not going to.
Well, she told me you had to do it in heels.
Well, she had to do it.
Yeah.
Not me.
Don't talk about hills. Bill, you've been in hills more than me and Jaisy
Yeah,
have. So.
that's
That's
right.
true.
Okay, so a couple of things that we made some notes on. I think you're really good at managing people. I think you're really good at managing a large company. Where did that skill set or those skill sets come from? What do you attribute that to?
So my initial answer, since this is really ad lib, because I have no idea what you're going to ask me. So I'll go back to that day when I came back from college. I went to college for a year, and I came back home and I said, Mom and Dad, it was a restaurant. I want to go in the real estate business at 18. And back then you had to be 21 to get your license because that was legal age. And Dad said, okay, you can do that on 2 conditions. We're a big condition family. You do this, you got to earn it.
Yeah.
So the conditions were that you will go to school, sit in a classroom 1 day a month average, or 12 days a year for the rest of your life. College, 1 day a month. Okay, I'll swap that out. That sounds pretty good. That's fair. Easier. No tests. Okay, we can do that. The test is life, by the way. So for 49 years, I've been going to school 12 to 30 plus days a year. This week, I was in classes, in my opinion, this is a class, strategic planning for our company, and then another conference I was at for 4 days, just this week. So that was the first thing. And the second condition was you will read, study, and think an hour a day, 5 days a week for the rest of your life. And so for 49 years, I've been waking up early, and generally I go to breakfast somewhere, and I'm by myself most of those days, not all of them, but a lot of them. And I'm reading and I'm studying and I'm thinking. And so that gives me about 6 extra weeks a year over my competition if they show up on time.
For sure.
And not only that, it helps me work on my business instead of in my business. You get into the office and, phones ringing and emails coming in and life happens and houses or offices flood,
Yes,
little things like that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're wrapped up in that stuff. So being able to think and grow and develop my mind and develop those people around me to help them grow and develop and lead. And over time, this is what happens.
What is it like taking over a company, that your dad started? Did you ever feel some sort of pressure to, be like him, or, what was that like?
So while that's going back and taxing my memory, that was 44 years ago. And I went to a class at A&M, 2-week class. It was put on by the Real Estate Center down there. They don't have it anymore. But that class was 1/4 management of a real estate company and the money side of it, profit and loss and expenses and controlling all that, the finance side. And then there was another section of that class that was about people and personalities and dealing with different types and so forth. So anyway, I was a little cocky at 22 years young, and walked into Dad's office after going to this 2-week course. It's a 3-year program, but that was the first year. So I came back home and I said, Dad, I think anytime you want to move along, just let me know and I'll take over the company. And getting a little cocky. About 30 days later, he called me up or called me in the office and said, okay, I got something else I want to do. It's yours and Jan's.
Wow.
That brings up
deer in
culture.
headlights. Is that the
Wow.
Well, it is now. It wasn't this. I got this. And
that's when you're most dangerous, when you think you have it right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it sure is. And I want to bring up the word culture because it really plays right into culture. It's often an overused word. I just sat through the same strategic planning you did. We talked about culture, but in a few words or a few paragraphs, what does culture mean to you? How do you see that played out day to day? I mean, that's what Judge Fite Company is about to me, is our culture. So what's that mean to you?
Well, if you recall, Bill, just yesterday I quoted our culture statement that's been in place for over 30 years. And our culture statement is we're a diversified group of people that work together as a family and operate like a business. And when you take that culture statement apart, over the last period of time, our country, our world has been in a cultural, I'll call it revolution for lack of a better term. And there's a lot of companies scrambling to be diversified. There's a lot of companies that they've got diversity committees and they're trying to figure it out. Well, I'm very proud to say, as we looked at this world we live in our own business, we've been living diversity for over 30 years. It's a way of life for us. And so let's just start there. We speak 36 languages or more now, probably. Last time we counted in our company, we embrace diversity, all kinds. I can list them out, but that's enough said.
Jaisy. You have agents and Asians, and I'm one of the Asians.
Well, let me say this. We have 2 ladies here. We have a couple of gentlemen here, too. So that's the first part. Family is extremely important to us. We could be this big corporate company where we don't know anybody. We don't call you on the phone, Jaisy, when you're interviewing with our company and make sure you're the right fit and you make sure we're the right fit. But that's not who we are. That starts with that interview. That starts with the people we select, the people we lead, and the way we lead them, the way we train and develop our culture of helping each other.
Well, and I'll speak to the family thing because I think a lot of times people think that's like the Sunday school Jesus answer, you know, like what describes your company, family. But I will say that I'm a living testament to that's exactly what it feels like. And when somebody's hurting or sick, and we've unfortunately had the opportunity to show that a lot lately. But if someone passes or someone needs anything, like people will drop what they're doing, and it's not just other agents, it's management, and people are all in. And I don't know how to explain it other than knowing the people are there, whether you need them or not, they're there. And it's awesome. And I think what you built is awesome.
It is awesome. And it's not everywhere.
No, it's not.
And so the last one is operate like a business. And the fact is we got to make payroll. We got to pay the rent. Utilities come up every month, whether we sell a house or not and sell a piece of property. And so we still have to operate like a business. And sometimes people forget that piece of it, that we're still a business. We still have mouths to feed,
right?
And that's really important. And just day before yesterday, Bill, you and I witnessed something pretty special at our leadership strategic planning meeting, where we went around and said, what does the culture of this company mean to you? And we had 39 people in the room. And I got to tell you, I was reaching for the Kleenex, and it was pretty amazing.
Is your allergies bothering you? That pollen is pretty strong.
It was a great moving experience, but it also gave us some other things. And in leading, I think it's important to know who you are, but more importantly, to know who you're not. And what would you say to that, Jim?
Well, that was a trick question.
Well, it's kind of like the chipping away, like when you're making an ice sculpture, or you take away what's not needed, right? Instead of trying to build something and put it together, you take away the excess.
Well, I think what Bill's referring to is a little talk that I gave day before yesterday, and I had a slide up behind me on this PowerPoint of pretty much every real estate company that we compete with every day.
Right.
And so I asked the group to look at the slide, and it's the logos of all these companies. And then I clicked the button again, and it says who we are, ... And then I clicked it again, not. We are not them.
Right.
The next slide is who we are. And then I brought up our logo of the Century 21 Judge Fite brand, and also all of our other companies, our title company, mortgage, insurance, property management, Judge Fite Charitable Foundation. And then, I talked about who we are. We are us. We are not them. We compete with them, and a lot of them are great companies in their own right, but they're not us.
Right.
That's all I got to say.
And I think what's important to realize on that is we can't be them either. And we don't want to be them.
Mm-mm.
We intentionally want to be us. And I think all too often in a world today, everybody tries to be like everybody else. We need to recognize who we are and be us. I think it's really important that we do that.
Well, thank you for that, Bill, because obviously that beats on my door on a regular basis. Well, so-and-so does such and such, and so-and-so does such and such, and we need to do such and such or so-and-so. And, well, maybe so, but probably not.
Right.
Because that's not who we are.
But I think you guys are good at sticking to the fundamentals, just in life and business in general, instead of, because real estate and most industries, that shiny object syndrome gets most people. And that's how most people end up bankrupt or out of business or unsuccessful, whatever, because they're constantly chasing the next thing. And,
right.
And let's take this further than real estate, Sarah.
Sure.
Most businesses, most people in their business chase that shiny object.
Or the next diet or whatever.
Gosh, I wish you had mentioned that. That was getting personal.
But I like the fact that you and I know who we are, because we're not really worried based on our rotund shape.
Ours or yours?
Hourglass?
I'll just speak to me.
Okay,
and you can
just
speak to yourself.
Right.
Stay in your lane, Bill.
You're supposed to be comfortable being you.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm embracing that.
But what do you wish you would have known? I know you've talked about, you've gone through so many different stages in the business of, having to pivot in different ways and things like that. But what do you wish that you would have known starting out at 22 when your dad kind of handed you the keys, to now? What would you want to have known then?
What would you tell 22-year-old?
Yeah.
Well, first
Did you
of
ever
all,
go by Jimmy, or has it always been Jim?
Jim.
Okay.
So, I'll relate that to a question that is more frequently asked of me of what do you regret? Okay, so similar but a little different.
He didn't
And
like your question.
Yeah, well, that's a good way of saying I didn't like the question, and I don't have an answer to it, so I'm going to make my own up.
That's okay.
And
do you.
I don't
fine.
regret anything. I look back on my life. I've made mistakes. I've screwed up. I've done a lot of things right, and at the end of the day, could I have been closer to God at periods of my life? Absolutely. God was always there.
Yeah.
Jim kind of went astray. And I learned from those experiences, So regrets, don't have any. I learned from every experience. That's something I learned early on in 2 years into management. I went to a course that taught me a system called the closed loop. And the closed loop says I'm successful. Whatever I plan and I execute, whether it works or whether it doesn't, I'm successful. And then what did I learn? If it was successful, what did I learn? Will I do it again? Am I going to tweak it, change it, or do it again? And I go through pretty much life that way. And so I don't look back and say, oh my gosh, if only. I'm sorry, that's just not who
No
I am.
regrets.
No regrets.
Sounds like Bill's Airstream.
Well, and
That's the title of it.
we had another fellow on our show named Eric Fite.
No.
So is that a baton passing in the making with Mr.
How
Eric?
about done?
Yeah.
Whether
So
he
you waited
wants it
till
or
he
not.
got a little more seasoned.
Right.
5.5 years ago, we found a system where we could work on our succession planning. You may think that I'm only 45, and I am, but the fact is someday I'm going to be older. And so, it's important to us for this company to live on so people like you will have a place to grow and develop and earn and do your part of life. And so succession planning is something we really have been focused on the last 5.5 years. And give you an example, 5.5 years ago, I had 27 people reporting to me. And today I have one.
Eric,
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
get that boy in
You
line.
have no idea. It's awesome. It is awesome.
Yeah, Sunday night at 9:00, he didn't even know this occurred.
That's right.
Monday morning, he got a
An
back
email.
brief.
That's
Yeah, an
beautiful.
email. That
I
was
got
it.
an email.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm so proud of
The way it was
the
handled.
way it was handled.
Oh, me too. It was
And-
awesome.
And by the way, we had that same thing happen in our Colleyville office in Snowmageddon. We had a flood. We had a pipe bust. And the same thing happened, maybe different people, different ways. But the fact is, 3 or 4 days later, they had a temporary location. They moved in. They got the insurance adjuster out. They got the restoration companies out. I mean, it was done.
I want to give a personal shout out to Chelsea Catlett.
Mhm.
So she is actually our
Chelsea.
admin at the office, and she busted her tail.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, she works harder than any man I've ever seen too. She is strong, and she's all the heavy lifting. She's awesome.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
And she's got a lot on her plate. She's planning a wedding.
Yes.
She's doing all sorts of things, and yet
Maybe that's where all of her
I've
eager
seen her-
to
yeah.
move heavy items come from.
That's part of the right people, right seats.
right.
Yeah.
Putting the right people in the right seats in the company is critical
For
to
sure.
all of our success.
Mhm.
For sure.
It's not just mine, it's all of our success.
it sure is. And it goes back to one of the things I think you talk about with success. It's important that we give back. And I believe that not only do we, but I believe our company gives back in a big way. And Jim Fite's involved in that in a huge way. I know for sure you sat on the board of directors for Easter Seals. You've sat on the board of directors for Methodist Hospital, and I'm just touching a couple of them. You created a foundation called the Judge Fite Foundation. Talk for just a minute or two on your belief on giving back.
Well, I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan. And first of all, I believe that, looking back on life, there are givers and there are takers. And I would like to think I'm proud to be a giver. I don't want to be a taker. Just not in my DNA. And I was raised that way. My parents were givers. And so as I went through life, still going through life, whether it was volunteer in Young Life, Christian non-denomination organization at 19 years old. And then I went on their adult board and still to this day give them money, support them financially. On to you go into business and you have all kinds of opportunities, or, hundreds or thousands of great nonprofits out there in the world. And, I'm privileged at this point in my life to be able to support a lot of things that are worthwhile. And certainly I hope, and I said it when we formed the Judge Fite Charitable Foundation, that if there was anything I'm hope to be most proud of in my life, that's it. Because it gives people emergency funds. That's the purpose of it. Emergency funds when they have an emergency crisis in their life. And the board has, I'm not even on that board, but they have done some amazing things to help people like, we had an office flood. Well, there are people that have house floods and
fires.
Fires and on and on and on and on, and children and illness and, family members that died and they didn't have the money to have a funeral, and on, all the things that we as a company of our size get to hear about, not in a good way, of life happens to people who aren't as blessed and fortunate as we are. So the foundation can 48 hours get a check in their hand.
I think that's amazing. We've got a little segment that we call Tales from the Lockbox. I've known Jim for over 25 years now, and I'm privileged to call him one of my very best friends and my boss. But during this time, I've seen quite a few things, and the stories I could tell.
Oh, no.
But I won't.
Do you want to keep your
But I won't.
I'm glad we're out of time.
Okay. But I do want to tell about how Jim likes to bond with his son, Eric, because many years ago, they were going on.
I'm trying to read ahead at your notes.
Yeah.
Make sure you're okay.
They were going on it's coming out regardless, but they were going on a fishing trip. And Jim and Eric were going fishing. And Eric was much younger. And Jim is driving a fairly new car to him. He always buys used cars, but it's a new car to him. I believe it's a Cadillac.
When you realize what story
Go ahead.
I believe it's Cadillac, and you drove to the parking lot in DFW. Oh, he remembers the story. And they went on an amazing fishing trip, and they were gone for about 7 days, and they came back into the area and they landed late at night. Jim figured they would just get in the car. He'd drop Eric off at his house, and then Jim would drive to his house. There was one minor catch. Did you know that Cadillacs will not run all week on a single tank of gas if you leave them running?
The gas tank was full too. I just want you to know.
You need to get, the treadmills have that little key that when you step off it unplugs it.
Yeah.
Maybe you should get something that pulls your keys out.
Well, they used to have keys in cars. This was the first car I ever had that had the button.
Oh, you too fancy. That's why.
And so
forgot to press the button.
And so I forgot to push the button. It was 4:00 in the morning when we got to I picked them up at 4, about 5 when we got to the airport. We had a 6 whatever flight, and I forgot to turn the car off.
Oh my God.
And we get home.
And I get
amazing.
to turn off my Cadillac.
So
That's crazy.
We're going to Canada, and it's cool and it's wonderful. We get home and it's 104 degrees at 9:00 at night, and the car won't start.
Oh, no.
The battery's dead. So anyway, you can take it from there. Not only was the battery dead, it had not a drop of gas.
How dare that Cadillac?
How dare that Cadillac?
It was amazing.
Thank you for bringing that up right at the end here.
Thank you. He had other things, so you
Good.
should be
I'm lucky.
thankful about that one.
Big
so
dog.
I'm gonna level us up a little bit, and Jim will probably recognize this quote, but a wise man once said, "Real estate is the highest paying hard job or the lowest paying easy job. You make it what you want." Who said that?
Well, I would say my father, but it
Yes.
probably came before him.
I asked Jan, and that's what she had told me. The other one, she said was something about trust everyone, but
Brand your cattle.
Brand your cattle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to encourage everyone to make your choice when you wake up in the morning, and whatever you decide to do, make it what it is. You can decide how your day is going to go for the most part.
You have a choice.
It's going to be a good one. Yes,
Every
sir.
day.
Thank you so much for coming, Mr. Jim.
I appreciate
That makes
it.
me want pizza.
Thank
you.
I say that. Sorry, Mr. Jim. Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for all of the knowledge that you've shared with us. To everyone listening, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe, share, and we'll catch you next time. PB and Jaisy, we out.
We out.
Just had a chat, talk this and that with PB and Jaisy.